Okay, so let's get to it. I think you've installed 7 purpose-built artificial reefs since 2013, and there's more on the way, I believe up to 4 more, so that'll be 11. Tell us about these artificial reefs and what purpose they have for the environment and the community.
Okay, sure, thanks. Look, the purpose really is to create new, safe, accessible fishing locations for, people in smaller boats up and down the coast. So there's a range of different structures you can use. You can use steel in deeper areas where there's less oxygen in the water, sort of in the 40 or 30 to 40 plus metre range. In the shallower water, we tend to use steel reinforced concrete, and the idea is to create new complex habitat, and that starts to get settlement of algae, sponges, corals and invertebrates, and then once they all move in, they support a range of species depending on where they're located. And what it does is at a micro level, it increases carrying capacity and just provides a new opportunity for fishers where there perhaps wasn't one before. Most of them are positioned over sand and close to boat ramps. Most of them are sort of 4 to 10 kilometres from a boat ramp.
So tell us the ones since 2013, the first couple that have been deployed. You send down a camera, or do you research and review how that habitat has progressed since then, which is now 11 years past?
Yeah, so look, the first ones that went in were the Dunsborough and Bunbury reefs in 2013. The Dunsborough one's about 6 kilometres offshore, sort of north of Old Dunsborough boat ramp, and the Bunbury one's about 4 k's west of the port. So look, on all these reefs, we work closely with Recfishwest as the peak body for wreck fishing, and we have a combined monitoring program. They have a program called Reef Vision that has been really successful, and it's using recreational fishers to be part of that, sort of community-based monitoring. And then we have our own scientists that do regular, BRUVs, which is baited underwater cameras. They also do dive surveys, and we did extensive monitoring on Bunbury and Dunsborough as a trial to see how it would go. So, and that was pretty successful. We looked at nearby reefs to make sure, to see if there was any reduction in fish in nearby reefs, and there weren't, which was good. And one of the surprising things with Dunsborough is there is more, anecdotally, there's more seagrass around the Dunsborough reef than there was before the reef went in. So that's about how the reefs themselves sort of disturb the water flow and create sort of little eddies, and so the seeds for the seagrass can settle, and even with anchoring around it, there's more seagrass there now. So that's interesting.
We're speaking to Mark Pagano from the Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development, talking about artificial reefs. Mark, you mentioned something, you put a baited camera, is that correct, down?
Yes.
Is that you said before? Now, some of that footage I've seen sometimes, you see, some big species of marine life come up to the camera, and they're obviously intrigued, but obviously the bait is the attraction. But they come up close and personal to the underwater vision, isn't it?
Yeah, it is interesting, and we see some really interesting things that we don't expect. Like we've seen some very big blue groper swim past the Dunsborough baited cameras. They're not attracted to the cameras, but while the cameras were down, to the bait. But when the cameras were down, we saw 2 really big ones in that area. We've seen a rankin cod at the Bunbury reef, which was unusual.
Yeah.
And then Recfishwest have done some really fantastic monitoring of the South Rotto fish towers, which are 2 steel reefs, and they've got all 3 of the Seriola species on that reef at one time. So that's yellowtail kingfish, Samson fish, and amberjack. And we weren't aware of that before we looked at the camera work.
And you've got many more getting deployed. You mentioned you got another 4. I'm led to believe. And where are they going to be located?
So we've got there's a tender out now for the Carnarvon Artificial Reef, which is about 7 k's southwest of Carnarvon. We will probably go out to tender very shortly on the Kalbarri Steel Reef Towers, which are about 4 k's southwest of Kalbarri. We're working with the City of Albany and Recfishwest on a tender that will be released shortly for the Albany Artificial Reef, and that one's about 9 k's east of Albany. And then we're also got the Broome Artificial Reef, and Recfishwest are just consulting with the community up there on that one. That's off about 16 k's off Ganthium Point.
Mark, I want to continue this. I'm going to ask you to hold the line. We need a clearer commitment. We're speaking to Mark Pagano from the Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development, or DPIRD as we know them, regarding artificial reefs. So, Mark, your association with Recfishwest, it's a great relationship when you get these initiatives together, and we're talking about artificial reefs for all our listeners. Really intrigued by some of the results that you've achieved since 2013 when the first one was deployed down in the Busselton region. Tell us more about your association with Recfishwest.
Oh, look, I guess it's important to let you know that, of these 7 reefs that have already gone in and 4 to come, they've been funded through the Recreational Fishing Initiatives Fund, and that is the minister administers that for recreational fishing initiatives.
So that's our fishing licence, isn't it?
That's absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
The money from our fishing licences, and we've invested over 10 million. The minister has invested over 10 million in the last, since 2013 on these initiatives. But what we do with Recfishwest goes beyond that. Recfishwest also works with the resources sector on integrated reefs, and that's using sort of, repurposed subsea infrastructure in combination with purpose-built modules, if you want to call them that. So Recfishwest actually have up to another 10 reefs in the pipeline. So we work closely with them and assist them with the approvals process for those reefs. And most of those will be up in the northwest, sort of between Exmouth and sort of Port Hedland and offshore from there.
See, I wasn't aware of that. I'm a recreational fishing licence holder. 3 fishing licences I have. Obviously my Recfish, boat fishing licence, and then obviously rock lobster and abalone. So that's great that we know that, and we know that our hard-earned, obviously, to have a fishing licence and the resources that goes behind it. You mentioned that it got in the pipeline another 10 after these 4. Why so many artificial reefs? What's the scientific benefits from that, and how does that compare to, other countries of the world that have got a fishing management program? Do they have similar things to what we're doing?
Oh, sure. Look, way back in the, sort of around the 2010 to sort of 15, we undertook several sort of visits to China, Korea and Japan to look at what they were doing. They have a very sort of mature reef program, and they've pumped something like over close to $1 billion into that space. Initially, it was commenced in China and Korea to stop illegal fishing. Yeah. And illegal trawling, where they would put big modules down and then to stop people entering areas. But then they found that it was actually creating habitat, and now they have programs of up to about $50 million worth a year to create that additional habitat. And Korea themselves, attribute a considerable amount of their wild capture commercial fishery from their artificial reefs.
Gee, that's amazing that what you just mentioned from when the Chinese deployed them, it was to stop illegal fishing, and it created, from a negative, it created a positive because it created habitat. So that is quite remarkable. With the artificial reefs, can you go online, when I say online, the department website, to get the coordinates for these artificial reefs?
Sure. Look, what we do is with the artificial reefs, we work closely with Recfishwest, and they have a great mapping tool. So if you go to their website and just all type in Recfishwest artificial reef locations, you'll be able to click on individual reefs. It'll tell you the coordinates and the distance from the nearest boat ramp and those sorts of details.
Yeah, that's really important. And I guess where you've placed them, just one final question, I guess the weather pattern in that particular area, because you're going to get multiples of people going out there by boat. So it's obviously a relatively safe area weather-wise.
Yeah, look, what we try to do is we'll set them up in an area. For example, the Bunbury one is west-southwest of Bunbury, so if the sea breeze comes in, you've got it behind you coming in, and we try to take that into account, and so the key part that Recfishwest plays in this with the government sort of led reefs is they will provide consultation with the recreational sector, and they've got some really good links into local communities, and they'll provide advice on where they best think a reef should be. And then we'll do a considerable amount of constraints mapping to ensure we're not impinging on other users and just come up with the best solution we can.